You have an intimate night with your partner. Laughter on the couch, unfinished sentences, perfect alignment. And then, the next morning, they pull a door shut somewhere inside themselves. Couples therapists call this sudden, jarring distance the relationship hangover. From the outside, this withdrawal carries the appearance of calculated coldness, game playing, or a sudden, confusing loss of interest. If you are an anxious partner, your reflex fires immediately. You want to bridge the gap. You send the follow-up text. You ask if everything is okay. You push closer to find the source of the shift. To an avoidant partner, that pursuit registers quite differently. To their nervous system, every one of those texts and questions feels like the temperature in the room climbing to a dangerous level. At this stage, trying to fix the distance by chasing acts exactly like pouring gasoline on a fire. We are seeing two different survival reflexes collide in real time, creating a loop that logic alone cannot resolve. To understand the internal reality of an avoidant partner, we start with the deactivating strategy. This is an automatic nervous system response that operates well below the level of conscious choice. When closeness begins to feel like a threat, the brain reaches for the dimmer switch. It lowers the volume on the partner while amplifying the urgent need for independence. This clinical model highlights two specific brain regions tied to emotion regulation. In 2005, researchers used fMRI scans to observe highly avoidant adults during intense stress. On the surface, participants maintained calm expressions, but when the scanner looked under the hood, these emotion regulation engines failed to deactivate. The system was grinding as it worked to suppress the emotional experience. This neurological pattern often traces back to the first years of life. Children who reach out to caregivers who are overwhelmed or dismissive learn very quickly that depending on someone else carries a high risk. They learn to handle their needs in isolation. When a partner goes silent after a vulnerable conversation, the silence signals a systemic overload. Their internal system has reached its threshold and is reverting to the only survival method it has ever known. This scatterplot graph shows a steep downward trend line, representing a negative 0.63 correlation between avoidant attachment and relationship satisfaction. This data from a 2021 study in Frontiers in Psychology shows that higher avoidance consistently leads to lower satisfaction for both people in the relationship. The friction comes from incompatible triggers. The avoidant partner scans the room for too much closeness, while the anxious partner scans the exact same room for any hint of distance. This flowchart tracks the demand-withdraw cycle. One person steps back to regain a sense of safety, which causes the other to panic and demand a connection. The researchers found that these behaviors escalate in lockstep. Withdrawal from one partner predicted aggression from the other at a correlation of 0.54 for men and 0.56 for women. As the loop gains speed, the system eventually collapses. It results in either a volatile screaming match or a long, exhausted silence where neither person feels seen. In this scenario, both partners are simply triggering each other's deepest survival mechanisms. The relationship stops being a place of rest and starts feeling like an exhausting treadmill. Breaking this cycle requires a specific strategy for the moment you feel that drop in temperature. Traditional pursuit tactics usually fail. Sending follow-up texts or forcing a sit-down conversation only reinforces the avoidant defense system. To their nervous system, these moves feel like more heat, pushing the door completely shut. The effective move is often the most counterintuitive. When they step back, you hold your ground. You avoid the urge to chase, and instead allow the emotional air to settle completely. Many avoidant partners will eventually find their way back if given that space. However, this raises a larger question. How much effort are you willing to spend managing a connection structurally built to ask you to need less? The ultimate task is to stop internalizing the closing door. It is about removing the self-blame and deciding if this specific version of love matches the one you are willing to give a life to.